Mr. Marsalis, you'll be performing in Central Indiana on January 26th with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Thank you for taking time to join me today. It's an honor to have you on the program.
Man, it's my honor and pleasure, Kyle. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. You know, you've performed often in Indiana throughout the years, and before we talk about your upcoming show, I want to ask you about a couple of our jazz legends here in Indianapolis, if that's okay. First and foremost, I wanted to ask you about the Indianapolis trumpet player, Freddy Hubbard. He's often ranked amongst the greatest trumpet players in jazz history. I know you had a chance to play with him in 1987 at a tribute for Dizzy Gillespie. Any thoughts you want to share on Freddy Hubbard and his importance in jazz history?
Well, just his sound, Freddie's sound was still such a big sound and play with so much fire and feeling and consistency and quality. There's a great film on YouTube of him playing in Paris, I think in 1970, 72, somewhere in there. He's playing with so much fire. They played this song he wrote called Intrepid Fox. And he played with a lot of warmth and imagination. And he was kind of, for somebody in my generation, he was the definition of modern trumpet playing.
Did you get to interact with him much at all?
Well, yeah, a lot. I spoke to Freddie a lot of times. I knew him well. It was very colorful.
Yeah.
He was colorful.
Yeah, a friend of his who toured with him, Phil Randleman, the trombone player, who's also from Indianapolis, has told me some fun stories about being on the road with Freddie.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Freddie, he had a colorful personality.
Sure.
Like his playing. It's interesting. He and Booker Little and Lee Morgan, they were all born during that same time period, 1938, 1940, 1941. And they all came to New York around the same time. And they were, even though Lee Morgan, he only had to come from Philly, whereas Booker came from Memphis and Freddie came from Indianapolis. But they knew each other intimately. And Freddie, he liked to talk about Booker and Lee in his young years. Whenever I would talk with him, he would be talking about the trumpet players that he came up with.
Another Indianapolis musician I wanted to hear your thoughts on is the trombonist, composer, and arranger J.J. Johnson. I believe you also played with J.J. at that same Dizzy Gillespie concert, and you were featured on his 1995 album Tangents. Any thoughts you want to share on J.J.?
Just J.J. was very buttoned down. Like he was the very definition of a professional musician. We recorded a piece of just a duet with trombone and trumpet, and JJ made sure you have everything. He also liked to tell good stories, but he was very the opposite of Freddie. He was very self-controlled. So you don't have a lot of wild stories about JJ. The JJ's playing speaks for itself. It's so unbelievable and so beautiful and lyrical. And his technical skills were beyond comparison. And all the trombonists just talk about the clarity, and he was very smart. The quality of his mind and his thinking, and he could write. He wrote beautiful melodies too, like things that he had a lot of technical skills. Could play very fast with a lot of velocity, but he also was a man with a great deal of emotion and sentimentality.
Both JJ and Freddie are connected to a neighborhood here in Indianapolis called Indiana Avenue, which produced so many jazz legends: Wes Montgomery, David Baker, Slide Hampton, Leroy Vinegar, Carl Perkins, the whole Montgomery family. You know, I could keep going on and on. James Spaulding, Larry Ridley. You played on Indiana Avenue, I believe, in 2009 at the historic Madam Walker Theater. Do you have any memories of being on Indiana Avenue, and do you have any sense of how that neighborhood's history has impacted jazz music?
Well, just a roll call of musicians you named, and many of the places, many cities in our country have these types of neighborhoods and areas where people played and did things. The question of all the neighborhoods now is, do they maintain the legacy of the neighborhood, not necessarily the legacy of the music? And yeah, I remember playing in the theater. I remember rehearsing the day. It was very community oriented. I remember going around the corner after sound check and just walking around. You know, it's just there's so many histories with the spirit of place, but it's a thing that we as a nation don't really connect with that much. And it's with the expansion in the suburbs after World War II, and then the civil rights movement in the 1960s, and then the whole kind of urban renewal, undermining of neighborhoods purposefully. Now it's kind of like the glow of what things were, the esque. And it's important for us to rekindle a spirit of community, not just where people of any type of ethnicity are, but just the country itself. We need community to be more than a word, wherever you're from, and that means economic infrastructure and a cultural infrastructure.
There are a lot of, building on what you just said, which I really appreciate, there were a lot of heroic figures in jazz that we focus on, from Louis Armstrong to John Coltrane, but the music was really pushed forward by these small communities, and these traditions were preserved and spread in these small communities. Do you think jazz music as this monolithic culture does enough to kind of acknowledge and celebrate these communities, which, to your point, have been many times wiped out, at least physically, due to urban renewal and gentrification?
Well, I think, it's hard for a music to celebrate a community. Like, the music comes out of the community. The question is, do community members believe in the community after it expands up from whatever it was? It's like if you have a family with kids who do things you don't like them doing, are they still your kids or not? That's only you can. There are many instances. So there's enough on the music. Music is documented, and people still try to play it all over the world. It's very difficult music to play, but it's very satisfying on a communal level. Small place where people checking it out in neighborhood spots. This ecosystem is fragile, as many are. So but still, musicians come up and play. Younger musicians come from all over, and they sound fantastic, and they want to get better and keep the music going. And everything in the community requires activism, because the community means investment, and it's like things like education, healthcare, all the things that affect all of us, especially as we get older. We start to understand you need a community but education is for us when we're younger, but the thought that our students have to go into debt so that they can't even survive shows a failure of us as a I'm trying, what word am I looking for? It's not civilization, but us as a people to understand the value of investment, and that we'll come around to it. We're still young as a nation, so some things that you get distilled over centuries, but certainly that rung of a civil society that is investment, we struggle with that, and the arts are a part of that. Everything can't be a business. Religion can't be a business. Politics can't be, but we have business. So there's the business community and the finances and the trade and the things that come from important things that come from trading, and the investment part of that is things like education and healthcare and the arts. And we don't really understand that sometimes.
Definitely agree with that. Mr. Marsalis, as I mentioned, you'll be performing in Central Indiana on January 26th with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. You've been deeply involved with Jazz at Lincoln Center for over 30 years. You currently lead the band and serve as managing and artistic director of Jazz at Lincoln Center. Can you give us a sense of why this organization has been such an important force in your life in music making? I mean, it really has become the center of so much of your music making over the last few decades.
Well, I'm one of the founders of it, so obviously it was something important to me that we get education. Really, things I saw my father and other great musicians I studied with do and say they wanted. We were able to galvanize a community of people around it. And it was really definitive for me as an adult, the quality of people I met that were not musicians. I had the opportunity to work with everybody from a submarine commander, World War II, vessel, to the top developers in New York, lawyers, business people that I would not have necessarily encountered had I just been not had the opportunity to work inside of a non-for-profit. And it was definitive to work with these extremely high-level, high-quality people who contributed and were volunteers to a cause. And we were able to build a building, build a library, establish a big band, go on the road, have 12 education programs, start a radio show, get a television platform. We did so many things. And it was all because we were all believe in the mission of the organization and work together. And I was young when I started, 26, and now I'm 63. And some of those early members have passed on, some of our early board members. And we have a strong younger generation coming up. But it was really a community effort. So all of the things that we did, our hearts were in the right place. And we had the same dysfunction and arguing that all groups have. But we were and still remain dedicated to the mission of the music and to quality. And I think that's seen us through many difficult times, 9/11, subprime crisis, COVID, all of these things. Jazz at Lincoln Center has stayed up and running the entire time.
You mentioned the diversity of experience being involved with Jazz at Lincoln Center has offered you. And I think that's very much reflected in your latest release with Jazz at Lincoln Center, Shanghai Suite, which is an album I loved. I thought that was such a unique record. You incorporate some Eastern moods and tones in the music. The album was inspired by Chinese mythology and culture. Tell us about this record, and did you have any kind of trepidation about taking on some of those themes in your writing?
Well, I don't have any trepidation about writing instrumental music about themes of people around the world. I have many friends, musicians, that come from all different cultures and that I've known for many years. Tan Dun, the great Chinese composer, I've known him 30 years. So, and we talk, I listen to his music, and he turned me on to all kinds of folk music. And we've toured China and had the opportunity to meet great musicians who I've seen develop. Some kids I had as students when they were just 12 or 13, now they play in some of the top symphony orchestras in China. So I also was working with our presenter in China is a guy named Wei Min Huang, and his son, Huang Ye, is a kid that younger than my third son. He's 25, 26 years old. And Huang Ye helped me with so much of the music and the themes. He's a great composer, clarinetist. He's a part of the whole world we're trying to develop with our younger people, where we all work together. And I kicked a lot of the themes and ideas back and forth with him. It's good to have a really younger person listen to their ideas and views and thoughts. It was instructional in many ways. And when I truly say I look at him like a son, like I have a love and a depth of feeling for him, he plays on the Shanghai Suite. It was kind of a funny story because the first night he was struggling with this song that I wrote in 5. So we talked. I said, you got to get that 5 together, man. The next night he was ready for the 5, And it's just it's been a blessing for me to write music for all of many different styles, from Yakub Adi and Odada to Ochas with Pedrito Martinez, dealing with Santeria and things in the Yoruba tradition, and Chano Dominguez, the flamenco jazz, dealing with the whole flamenco concept, and my good friend Nasir Sharma, oud player from Iraq. And these are things that we do for our entire lives, just try to work and understand each other. And each collaboration, we try to get better.
One of the first records you played on was an Afrobeat record, right?
I don't even remember. I don't remember. But
you don't remember that?
I remember because I went to the session, but nobody was there. It was like over a track.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I was so unsophisticated at that time. They said, "You're gonna play." I walked in expecting to be musicians, but it was just a track. So I played on it, but I don't consider that playing a lot of times. You got to be with people.
Yeah, it's a cool record, though. I love that record. Finally, Mr.
That was 40. That was 43, 44 years ago.
2 years ago.
I can't believe it.
Finally, Mr. Marsalis, we're speaking today on January 6th, which has now become an infamous date in American history. Over the last few years, you've issued recordings commenting on the socio-political climate of the United States, including Democracy Suite and Freedom, Justice, and Hope. Your upcoming tour is kicking off as the new presidential administration is coming into office. There's a lot of anxiety in the air right now. Any thoughts you want to share about hitting the road right now in the current cultural climate in America?
Well, I'm afraid to fly, so I drive. And I'm not afraid of America. I've been up and down the country for 40-something years, all over, and been in all kinds of people's homes. And whether I like the politics of the country or I like the politics of a person whose home I'm in, it's a part of democracy. I don't feel that every time I have a disagreement with people, it's going to spiral into violence, because I don't bring violence to people when I disagree with them. And like I was saying earlier, we're a young country, and countries have a lot to learn, and they learn them in due time. As you get older, you realize your lifetime is not going to be enough. But we only live, if we're lucky, 90, 85, 90, 100 years. It's not that long. And I never have any fear of traveling up and down our country. And I've gone in places and cities everywhere in the country my entire time. I played in all the states, in the South and the North, and whatever the different names they have, fly over America. I don't keep up with the cliches. And I've met fantastic and reprehensible people everywhere, including starting in my own neighborhood when I was growing up. So I think, it's a struggle. We struggle with democracy is difficult. The freedom of other people is always a difficult issue when the history of the world has been survival of the fittest. It's to believe in our way, in our country, in our ways. It's easy to believe in it when your people are winning and it's what you want. The question is, who believes in it when it's not what you want? And I'm a believer. I tell two stories. I tell Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, he was told by everybody, do not cancel the election because you're definitely going to lose. And he made sure there was an election. He was convinced. The polls and all of his advisors said, you will lose. He said, I'm going to be about this. I like the fact that Benjamin Franklin, upon his death, left money to be distributed to Boston, Philly, and Philadelphia, to Boston, Philly, and New York. And he said, in 100 years, I want them to take out an annuity of this. And then he left an annuity for them. And we said, I want them to take out some of the dividends of this in 100 years and in 200 years. But I've talked about it in a speech sometime, and I said, you noticed that New York's money was shorter than everybody else's. So that's not what he gave. It's just what they did with it. And I like that type of belief. So no, I don't have any trepidation about hitting the road. My 40 years on the road would not lead me to have that feeling.
And you'll be here in Indiana on January 26th. Thank you for taking time to speak with me today. Any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners here in Indianapolis?
We're going to be swinging. We're always about quality. And we believe in entertaining with music. And where we're playing for the people, we want people to dig the music. And you're certainly going to hear things that you never have heard and that you will not hear. And we have some of the greatest musicians in the world, the greatest people. So we look forward to seeing y'all. And thank you, Carlos. It's a great pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you, and see you in Indianapolis.
Yeah, you're right.